with the announcement of Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, everyone thought that it was just going to be 100 years ago, the story retold, or not retold, but told to us the first time. I guess some of it would be retold because we've seen a lot in memories and stuff, and we would just be playing through those memories, which is what it looked like in some of the trailers. But now, and it's also what Nintendo told us, let's not forget.
Yes.
There's... Yeah, because like the first trailer was officially titled "What Happened 100 Years Before," so that made it pretty clear cut. But playing the demo, it seems that it's a new timeline split that's just retelling a version that won't mess up the canon of what Nintendo is wanting to do with Breath of the Wild. So it gives the Warriors team some freedom to do some of their own stuff and come up with their own ideas that won't hurt what Nintendo is trying to do. That way, both teams can do what they want to do without being limited by what the other's doing. Which makes sense in terms of trying to make the best game that you can possibly make without having to not do stuff that you think is cool. But Hyrule Warriors was, I always thought, always kind of limited, because for those, this is answering a question a lot of people have asked us. Daniel answered it yesterday on the mailbag thing he did. Is Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity going to have real dungeons or shrines? And yeah, probably not, because the one rule Nintendo had, not just with Zelda, but whenever they made the Mario spinoff, Mario plus Rabbids, but also with Hyrule Warriors, they, like with Mario, it was like, yeah, you can make a Mario game, but it can't jump. So they gave them guns instead. And then,
that's true.
And then with
it's
Hyrule... funny
because it's Mario who's known for jumping, and Rabbids, and Rabbids are like, you know, like rabbits, and
who also jump.
You know, jumping. So
no jumping was allowed to happen.
No jumping.
And then with the original Hyrule Warriors, Aonuma said, yeah, you can make a Zelda spin-off game, but there can be no dungeons or other traditional Zelda things. And then they went back after they like made a dungeon and showed them. It was like, can we please keep this in the game? And Aonuma was like, no. Because they didn't want something to compete with the Zelda games they were making at the time. So yeah, so then we got, because they were like, you need to make the Zelda game that I can't make.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyways, so that answers the question that everyone is probably wanting to comment or ask that didn't play the original. So it'll be, if you didn't like the shrines in Breath of the Wild, then this is for you, because there probably won't be any.
True.
But there were like small dungeon-like caves where like there'd be like a treasure chest inside or something. Like, but anyways, going back to the whole story thing, do you think this will affect or tie into Breath of the Wild 2 at all, or do you think it's just going to be its own thing cut from continuity?
Well, I'm gonna just say right now, Tubes and I actually made a video, and we touched briefly on this in that video on my channel.
Where can people find? Oh, never mind.
So, but it's like a 45-minute video. We talked like everything demo-wise. But one of the things that she mentioned when we were doing that was that people have been talking about whether this game is canon or not, and if Kayla, you look so confused, like you're like, I didn't say that.
No. I'm sorry. It's something totally unrelated. Something totally unrelated. Okay, I need to interrupt you quickly. So I'm kind of crying because of what just happened.
Is there an onion?
So, yeah. Well, where I live, my window faces another window, and I definitely just saw a butt.
Oh my god!
Oh no!
People, close your blinds!
Oh no!
She like opened her blinds, and her butt was just there.
Oh no!
You have to love Canada.
I'm fine. It was a woman butt. It's okay. I'm not crying. You were crying. Okay. Sorry, you can continue.
Oh boy.
Oh my gosh, people.
Oh no. Yikes. Yikes. But yeah. Anyways, I think the game is gonna be is still going to be canon and just feed directly into Breath of the Wild, or at least that's what I really hope, because Nintendo's really hyped this up to be, this is the story 100 years before Breath of the Wild. and they put a lot of emphasis on that. And even though the baby egg, that's just what we're calling the little guardian, the diminutive guardian, baby egg is his name now. Even though he went back in time to try and prevent it, who's to say he was successful in actually preventing the calamity, right? I mean, he could have just made things worse because some malice followed him back in time and possessed that guardian in the second level of the demo. So it could just be that he tries to prevent it, but they still end up walking right into the same situation anyways, and it's just an inevitability. And so I don't see why it has to change things. I think with the story they're trying to tell, they have enough to go off of to make a really strong, impactful story without having to change any of what's canon, as far as in respects to how it affects Breath of the Wild, right? So it doesn't have to be a paradox or a split timeline or anything like that. It could just be a closed loop where Guardian goes back in time, tries to prevent it, and is just unsuccessful. And then he tries again to go back in time and prevent it. It's just
just over and over again.
I'm limited in my gaming capacity because of my right hand. I tried playing some of the Hyrule Warriors. Yeah, it's just
you can still walk around though.
Like when I go to press a button, it literally takes like a second before the button clicks. But I charge Daniel with being the one to complete the story and then tell me about it.
Knowing Daniel, he'll probably do it on stream, so you're fine. You can just watch him do it.
Yep.
There is that too.
Exactly.
You have potentially 5 days because we may or may not be having a guest on to talk about the other stuff.
5 days to beat the game. Let's go.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna put this out there. Like a couple days after the demo, I had finished the demo like 5 times already. More since then. I'm already on my 4th playthrough of Pikmin 3 Deluxe. And
if the demo was as long as it was, I'm sure the rest of Hyrule Warriors will be a lot longer.
Just to help Daniel. Where do you have time?
I find the time. You make time for the things you love.
Do you? Because I've tried doing that.
No, it's not like that. I swear I'm not neglectful.
Alright. Choops, what were your impressions of the demo and how it may or may not connect with Breath of the Wild 2?
So, it doesn't really make sense, as Daniel was saying, for things to really change, because at the end of the day, we're looking at a prequel. We're looking at something that happened before Breath of the Wild. And, if anything, they might take this opportunity to go, this is something that happened, 100 years before everything, and then maybe somehow, connect the dots in the second one, but, I don't know, I highly doubt that, because, Breath of the Wild 2 is definitely in production right now, and, they would have to really be planning out what they're doing. And as far as I'm concerned, they don't really plan what they're doing. They just kind of go with it, and then we put the pieces together after.
Alright, Geek, what are your thoughts?
Basically in the same boat. I know there's a lot of theories going around, and I love hearing the theories about this is opening up a new timeline, time paradox, and I like hearing about it. But I guess realistically speaking, I'm in the same boat. Why does it have to change anything? We didn't get all of the information on 100 years ago. There was so much left open. And so I feel like Nintendo and Koei Tecmo are just running with it. The idea that they can fill in some gaps and create some new things we never would have thought about. Are there going to be some retcons? Possibly. And I'm sure we'll discover and discuss those things as we progress through our individual playthroughs. Be like, actually in the main game it said this, and I'm sure there are going to be those little nuances here and there, but it's Nintendo. I wouldn't put it past them to make some crazy thing happen, but at the same time, I don't know. I don't think we need to be, quote, concerned about it breaking canon or anything like that. I don't know. Nothing about it is concerning to me. I know a lot of people who've been getting really up in arms about it, and as much as I am a story and lore person, I'm like, calm down. I'm just as into it as the next person. I love it. That's why I play Zelda all these years, was because of the music and because of the story. But because frankly, I stink at video games. But based on what we've gotten thus far, I have no qualms about it, breaking anything. Like when I saw the little egg thing go through the time porter, I was certainly shocked, but I was like, oh, I never would have thought of that. Interesting. My only thing is I just hope it always ends with failure, if that makes sense. That's my only hope, is that it ends with failure, knowing that you will not win.
That's the expectation.
Yeah, it's the ultimate pessimist game.
It's I mean, it's because victory comes later.
Does it?
Another video
exactly.
game.
I feel like it would be.
We thought we
it would
killed
be
him.
cheap if we had a chance to win.
Yeah.
It'd be like, what's the point of Breath of the Wild then?
Maybe that's what it's doing. It's giving you the hope that you could win. That way, everyone's not expecting that it's just going to go the way that we know it's going to go. So then, like, it has this time travel thing to where you're like, oh, well, maybe I can win, and then you just get
like a red
wrecked at the
herring.
end. Yeah.
Oh, maybe. And I'm sure it'll end like in a really, like, I'm anticipating, and I don't want to get my hopes too high, and I don't mean that in a pessimistic way, but I just always want to be realistic. I'm hoping to get to the end and there just be so much gravity and weight to the end scenes that I'll be like, yes, let's get through Breath of the Wild again. And also something I just thought of is, while there probably will be, quote, mistakes, I say that in quotations, like mistakes, whatever, little differences, you could always, I think a good majority of them will probably be able to check up to, well, things get messed up in translation when you go forward 100 years, right? Nothing's ever told perfectly. So a lot of it, hopefully we can just be like, well, that was 100 years later. The NPC who told us that, how do they know for sure what it was? That was 100 years ago. They don't know.
True. Like, if you think about it, in the Wind Waker, when the fishmen talk to you, they call it the Triumph Force, because the Triforce got the idea of the Triforce got so lost in translation over time. So it's not like an odd concept for the series to have myths and legends within itself, right? I like it.
I also want to bring up Skyward Sword had like its own time travel closed loop thing, to where like at the end of it you travel all the way back to kill Demise before he starts, and then you do that, but it doesn't do any good, so then you gotta
kill him in the present day, and then you have to go back in time and kill him in the past, and yeah.
And then there's like the closed loop with like the tree and everything as well, and it's like like technically that would have changed a lot, even though it's just one tree, because it brings up the whole paradox of like, well, if the tree was there before, you wouldn't have had to gone back to plant it. But it's like, it's a closed loop thing, so maybe like where Nintendo's done that before, they're like, well, we'll just do that again. To where like it doesn't create a new thing, it just kind of slightly rewrites what happened, but it still has the same ending event.
And you could still have like a quote-unquote victory at the end.
Could you?
In quotation marks. Like, here's how I kind of imagine it, is you have a level that's like close to the end of the game where Link dies. So Link falls in battle, right? And that level is just you battling swarms of guardians, and it's intense, and it's high pressure and emotional, whatever. And ultimately you have to lose. And then you have to take Link to the Shrine of Resurrection as probably Impa or Purah or Robbie or what have you. And then you have Zelda have a power march to the castle to seal Ganon, and there's your victory, is actually managing to get there successfully and seal him, at least for 100 years, and there's your win. And that doesn't break any canon. You still have your quote-unquote victory, even if it's more of a band-aid than actually completely eradicating the problem. But you could still have that sort of win, that sort of success at the end of the mission, as it were. Or a goal to complete. There's still ways to do it and have some form of triumph.
And honestly, it gives me chills just to think about getting to that point in the game and getting to see it fully and not just one memory.
My thought was, because like with Wind Waker, it kind of rewrites your thoughts of the ending of Ocarina of Time, because at the end of Ocarina of Time you're like, I did it, I saved Hyrule, and then like when you play Wind Waker, it's like, nope, it flooded, you did it wrong.
Like, dang it.
So so it kind of like makes that ending sort of useless when you look at it as the bigger picture, but when you just look at it as that game on its own, then it's still a good ending.
That is
so
actually such a perfect example.
Yeah.
That is flawless.
So I thought that might be how this game ends, to where it's like, yeah, everyone kind of dies, but like you still get the big end at the end of it. Like in Ocarina of Time, some of the sages you assume die because like Darunia goes into the fire temple to fight 𝐓𝐽𝐽𝐤, and then like you don't see his body anywhere when you go in the room. And then like some of the others as well. So Zelda games have kind of had that before, and then even in Wind Waker, there's like the spirits of the sages, so like they kind of already slightly dead. So in this game, I thought it was going to end similar to how Daniel said, to where it's like Link dies and you take his body up to the shrine, and then you take the broken sword to the Deku Tree, and then Zelda, with no one left, marches on to the castle, and then it probably ends with that first scene that we had where it's like her holding her hand up and doing the whole thing, which made me think, like, does that mean like when she did that, she had the full Triforce and that was a way for her to get her wish? Or I don't know.
I don't know.
But anyways, Tubes, did you have any thoughts on the way that it might end, or how you expect it to end? I mean, everyone's going to comment below and tell us we're all wrong in a week anyway, but you know, for now.
I mean, yeah, but my expectation going into it is that I'm fully expecting to feel really, really overwhelmed and sad at the end of it. That's yeah. Who knows? Maybe I'll stream it. Maybe you guys will actually see me like actually cry. I've come pretty close to crying on stream like twice.
Oh gosh, same.
Yeah, it was Paper Mario with the bomb guy that died, and then Skyward Sword. So yeah, who knows? That's honestly that's all I'm looking forward to. It's just I love those games where you lose. I love when the heroes lose. I know that sounds really, really weird, and yeah, it's just how I am.
Weird. It's a subversion of your expectations, though, right? We're so used to every story being, you know, this one of victory, good versus evil, good triumphs, right? So it's like, this is why Empire Strikes Back is my favorite Star Wars movie, is because essentially it ends in failure. Luke loses the battle against Darth Vader, gets his hand hacked off, and then he falls down a ventilation shaft and almost dies over a gas giant planet. They barely make it out. Han Solo is kidnapped and frozen in carbonite. Like, they go in with this plan to, like, do all this stuff, and they fail miserably and barely come out of it alive. And then they're like, well, damn. And then the movie ends. So, and then even there's, again, one of my favorite shows, Avatar, The Last Airbender. There's a great episode in which they basically gather all these allies that they made throughout the series up until that point and mount an invasion against the enemy. And that episode, too, it's one of their best episodes in the series because it brings all these elements from prior to that all together. And it ends in failure. Absolute powerful failure. And again, they barely escape with their lives. And it's just, there is a good thing in storytelling room for really good failure to just make the success later all the more better, basically.
Well,
so
it's like message of
chat, like Infinity War as well, right? Like
there you go. Yes, Infinity
that
War.
Kind of storytelling just like gets me. I love the loss because, like you said, it sets that victory up to just feel so good.
Yes.
Yes.
Even when you know the victory is
coming.
coming.
Infinity War. What's the matter with me?
Daniel, you're like Star Wars, Avatar.
I'm covering most of my bases here.
It's not like any big movies came out recently, in the past year or two. Geek, do you have your thoughts on how the game may possibly end?
Just same. That it ends with me probably crying on stream. I was gonna say I also almost cried, but then I realized I did completely break down after the announcement of Breath of the Wild 2.
I was gonna say, like, I feel like I've definitely seen you like openly cry. Like,
yeah, that was the only time I think I legit full on cried. No shame. I was very happy.
All right, so before we'll end it with a couple of questions from the chat. So if any of you guys can find any questions in the chat, we'll just do 2 really quick because we didn't have long to go. But while they're looking for questions, for those who are interested, maybe next week, on the 22nd, there may or may not be one of the champions from the Breath of the Wild that will be on.
I'm not available that day.
Yikes.
Dang it!
So we can't necessarily say who, but because we don't know if they're going to come. But it's everyone's favorite champion from Breath of the Wild, because technically we don't know if any of the champions returned to voice in Hyrule Warriors or not. So, but Breath of the Wild for sure.
Ooh, Jorge has a good one.
That's it for now, but a lot of rumors, news, and details are slowly leaking out. So please, stay subscribed and notified, and join our Discord to make sure you stay up to date on all Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 news. And you can find our Zelda podcast, the 𝐓𝐼𝐳𝐿𝐭𝐭𝐞𝐫, here on YouTube and on iTunes, where we have had many guests who have worked on the Zelda series, and have shared a lot of amazing stories about voice acting, such as Patricia Somerset voice acting as Zelda, Mike Drucker on Zelda's writing or translation team, coming up with the jokes in the game, stories behind the names of characters that he created. Please subscribe and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you. If you are a fan of our Zelda videos like this, Zelda Theories, our Zelda podcast, the 𝐓𝐼𝐳𝐿𝐭𝐭𝐞𝐫 on iTunes, we would all really appreciate your support at patreon.com/GameOverJesse. That and buying our t-shirts will get you and your YouTube or Twitch a shout out every week on our 𝐓𝐼𝐳𝐿𝐭𝐭𝐞𝐫. And if you send in a photo of yourself in our GameOverJesse or 𝐓𝐼𝐳𝐿𝐭𝐭𝐞𝐫 t-shirt, we can use it for promotion at the end of some of our videos.